Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sporting Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise, I might pay you guys a visit.
Big baby Jarrell Miller has issued a let's fight statement to Dillian Whyte, and this is what Jarrell Miller had to say. I think Dillian Whyte would be the perfect guy to knock the hell out. He fought a taxi driver on his American debut that nobody really cared about. I think this will be an awesome fight for me and Dillian to headline in April. This fight should be an eliminator fight where one of us would either fight Deontay Wilder or Anthony Joshua right after that. Definitely after that fight, I should be in the mandatory position. There's no ifs and no buts about it. That was Jarrell Miller's statement. So, a couple of good talking points here. It's a fight that everybody in boxing world would love to see. I think predominantly for the build-up, but ultimately I think the fight would be a real war, if you like. And both of them will be throwing big bombs. Both of them can be hit, but I think Dillian Whyte's defense is a lot better than Jarrell Miller. Dillian Whyte is the body snatcher for a reason, and he will attack the body of Jarrell Miller. So Jarrell Miller, he may lose a bit of stamina in that fight. I don't know whether or not he can knock out Dillian. Who knows? Maybe he can. But one of the things that he's mentioned here is headline in April. Now, Dillian Whyte is already set for February the 3rd. He's just waiting for an opponent. But he is trying to get Deontay Wilder as that opponent. So for him to fight in April is probably not going to happen. I think if Jarrell Miller really wants Dillian, then it's going to have to be February the 3rd at the O2 Arena in the UK. Or I believe it's the O2 anyway. And then he goes on to say that the winner will fight Wilder or Anthony Joshua after that. In theory, maybe. But we know Dillian doesn't want to fight Anthony Joshua until he has a world title, because it's more of a bargaining tool to take into the Joshua fight, as in he'll get more money, and not only that, it will be for a unified fight, potentially undisputed. So that's what Dillian Whyte wants to do. He wants to fight either Deontay Wilder or Joseph Parker and take that belt into Joshua. So I'm not too sure that's going to be too tempting for him. And where he says that fighting Deontay Wilder after, well, Dillian's trying to make that fight now rather than wait. But even if Miller and Dillian Whyte happens, neither one of them will get the right to fight Wilder after, because first of all, Wilder is trying to get Anthony Joshua. He's trying to cash out on that one. But also, the WBC haven't ordered this fight for an eliminator or to become mandatory. So with Jarrell Miller, he's not even ranked top 40. He's been removed from the rankings pretty much altogether now. He's not even in the top 40. So I'm not too sure why that happened. Maybe he refused to do the VADA testing, or I don't know. I'm speculating. So even if Miller was to win, he wouldn't become mandatory for Dillian Whyte. And if Dillian Whyte was to beat Jarrell Miller, again, he wouldn't become mandatory. Dillian Whyte is currently number 1 ranked, but until the WBC order Dillian Whyte to be the mandatory automatically, just like they did with Stavern, or they will more than likely set up an eliminator with somebody else, not Jarrell Miller. In other words, Dillian Whyte may have to fight Luis Ortiz or Dominic Brazil. So I don't think this fight is too tempting for Dillian Whyte, other than the fact it's a decent fight and most of the boxing world would want to watch it. It's good money for both of them. It is a headline fight, and Dillian would love nothing more than to probably shut him up. And I'm sure Jarrell Miller is the same with Dillian Whyte. But it's unlikely this fight is going to happen next. It's really unlikely, because when I spoke with Dillian a little while ago, as a lot of you heard, he wants fights that's going to help him in the position to fight Deontay Wilder or Joseph Parker. Now, this fight will help him toward getting Joseph Parker, but as the WBO have already ordered a final eliminator for the mandatory position between Christian Hammer and Alexander Povetkin, again, there isn't too much point even moving up in the rankings of the WBO, because the WBO will order the mandatory anyway for the winner between Hammer and Povetkin. So again, there isn't too much point to it, because in theory, Joseph Parker could fight Dillian next anyway with a voluntary, because he's already ranked high enough, and it wouldn't matter whether he's ranked number 1 or number 10. It just wouldn't matter at all. He could do it with a voluntary, and even if he was ranked number 1, he still wouldn't be the mandatory. Exactly the same with the WBC. He wouldn't be the mandatory unless the WBC authorised that, but they're not going to authorise that because, like I said, Jarrell Miller isn't ranked. So yes, I want to see that fight. If all else fails, I want to see that fight. But I understand if Dillian was to turn it down, because it doesn't really help with the whole ranking system and getting him a title fight. It just doesn't help at all. What he needs to do is either secure a fight as a voluntary against Wilder or Parker and then move on to Joshua, or he's going to have to wait and see what the WBC want to do, as in get Eddie Hearn to speak to Suleiman to say, listen, we want Dillian Whyte to become the mandatory for this position. What do we have to do? As in, are you going to order us to fight Dominic Brazil or Luis Ortiz or somebody else? So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I would love Jarrell Miller and Dillian Whyte to get it on. The build-up would be spectacular. You know it would. It would be absolutely immense. It will probably be, well, it will probably outdo the Chisora one, to be honest, and that was one hell of a build-up. Dillian Whyte doesn't hold his tongue when he's being verbally abused or insulted. He will go for him. He's not afraid to have a bit of a roll around, if you like, in the press conferences and all this kind of thing. So if whereas Jarrell Miller, he likes to do all that kind of thing as well. And if he tried to do to Dillian Whyte what he'd done to Gerald Washington, as in overtake him on the podium when he's talking, I think that Dillian Whyte will have something to say about that. He's not just going to be a pushover like Gerald Washington would. Both of them have decent wins on the last fight. I think Jarrell Miller against Mariusz Wach. Mariusz Wach is a quality name to have on the resume, and Robert Helenius is also a quality name on the resume. Neither of them looked spectacular in their wins, but they did the job. They dominated their opponents. They didn't drop them, but Robert Helenius was more defensive than anything else. And as everybody knows, when a fighter doesn't come to fight and they fight purely to survive, it's very, very hard to drop them, hurt them, and get them out of there. It's very, very hard. And almost the same with Mariusz Wach. Mariusz Wach did injure his right hand in that fight against Jarrell Miller, but you know what? Jarrell Miller did enough to win the fight. It's not like Mariusz Wach was going to stop him after the stoppage at number 9 when his corner pulled him out. So either way, I think that Dillian Whyte versus Jarrell Miller is a fight that all the fans would love to see. But like I said, I understand if Dillian just wasn't interested in that fight right now, because like I said, it doesn't do anything for him other than get a decent name on the record and a decent payday. But if all else fails, if they're not going to be ordering the mandatory anytime soon, there's no reason in the world why he can't be fighting Jarrell Miller. As in, there's not much point either him fighting Luis Ortiz or Dominic Brazil for the mandatory, because WBC are not going to be ordering the mandatory anytime soon. And even if they did, Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua would have already had their fight at that point. So I think what Dillian Whyte's going to be trying to do is secure the fight with Deontay Wilder or Joseph Parker. We know that Eddie Hearn is meant to be making an improved offer to Deontay Wilder. I think at the minute it's around about $4 million or something like that, plus US TV revenue. And for me, there's no reason why he can't offer the exact same deal with Joseph Parker. No reason in the world whatsoever. Joseph Parker is without an opponent. He's able to take a voluntary. Dillian Whyte fits that perfectly. Likewise, Jarrell Miller does with Joseph Parker as well. But Joseph Parker, he's trying to secure Anthony Joshua. For one reason or another, Wilder and Parker are almost unwilling to fight each other. Maybe it's a financial thing or whatever it may be, but ultimately they need to look at the bigger picture. A unified champion negotiating with Anthony Joshua for undisputed, you're getting a hell of a lot of money. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this whole situation. Jarrell Miller calls out Dillian Whyte for a headline fight in April, but Dillian Whyte is already penciled in for February the 3rd over here. I'm presuming it's a headliner. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. But yeah, I'm all in for this fight. I love this fight. But like I said, there's plenty of reasons why this fight probably wouldn't happen. But either way, drop yourself a comment below, click that thumbs up, and of course subscribe.